How to Analyze People. How to See Through Deception and Make Better Eye Contact. Written by Aries Helen. Narrated by Dean Collins. Chapter 1. The Top 3 Methods to Analyze Other People. A psychiatrist's true calling is actually to read people's emotions and thoughts, not just what they say, but who they are. Translating verbal and nonverbal hints, I want to see past their masks and into the real person. Logic alone won't tell you the entire story about anybody. You should give up to other crucial forms of information so that you can learn how to read the essential nonverbal instinctual hints that people produce. If this needs to get done, you should also want to surrender any prejudgments or emotional baggage, such as old resentments or ego clashes, that stop you from seeing someone plainly. The key is to remain objective and get information neutrally without distorting it. Whether you read your boss, colleague, or partner, to understand people accurately, you must surrender predispositions. Some walls should boil down. As brilliant as the intellect is, you have to be willing to let go of old, restricting ideas. Many people who read others well are trained to read the invisible. They've learned to utilize what I call their supersenses, to look further than where you generally put your attention to access life-changing intuitive insights. I welcome you to explore some of these different methods of reading people from my book, The Euphoria of Surrender. They all require surrendering pure reasoning in favor of also getting optional, nonlinear forms of input. 3 methods in the art of reading people. The first technique, observe body movement hints. Research has revealed that words account for only 7% of how we communicate, though our nonverbal communication, 55%, and voice tone, 30%, represent the rest. Here, the surrender to concentrate on is releasing trying too hard to read body language hints. Do not get overly intense or analytical. Stay relaxed and fluid. Be comfortable, kick back, and just observe. 1. Focus on appearance. When reading others' notification, are they wearing a power suit and well-shined shoes, dressed for success, indicating ambition? Denims and a t-shirt, suggesting convenience with being casual. A tight top with cleavage, a sexy choice? A pendant like a cross or Buddha, indicating spiritual values. 2. Notice posture. When reading individuals' posture, ask yourself, do they hold their head high, positive? Or do they walk indecisively or cringe, a sign of low self-confidence? Do they swagger with a puffed-out chest, a sign of a big ego? 3. Expect physical movements. Leaning and distance. Observe where people lean. Usually, we favor those we like, and from those we don't. Crossed arms and legs. This position suggests defensiveness, anger, or self-protection. When people cross their legs, they tend to point the toes of the leading leg towards the individual they're most at ease with. Hiding somebody's hands. When people place their hands in their laps, pockets, or put them behind their back, it suggests that they're hiding something. Lip biting or cuticle picking. When people bite or lick their lips, or chew their cuticles, they're trying to soothe themselves under pressure or in an uncomfortable situation. 4. Analyze facial expression. Emotions can become engraved on our faces. Deep frown lines suggest concern or overthinking. Crow's feet are the smile lines of delight. Pursed lips signal anger, contempt, or bitterness. A clenched jaw or teeth grinding are signs of stress. The second method. Listen to your instinct. You can tune into somebody beyond their nonverbal communication and words. Intuition is what your gut feels, not what your head says. It is nonverbal information you view through pictures and ahas, rather than reasoning. If you want to understand somebody, what counts the most is who the individual is, not their outer trappings. Intuition lets you see further than the obvious to expose a richer story. Checklist of instinctive hints. 1. Honor your suspicion. Listen to what your gut says, especially at the time of first conferences, a visceral response that occurs before you have a chance to think. It communicates whether you are at ease or not. Gut feelings happen quickly, a primal reaction. They're your internal truth meter, communicating if you can trust people. 2. Feel the goosebumps. Goosebumps are magnificent intuitive tingles that communicate that we resonate with people who move or inspire us or are saying something that strikes home. Goosebumps also happen when you experience déjà vu, a recognition that you've understood somebody before, though you have actually never met. 3. Pay close attention to flashes of insight. In conversations, you may get an aha about people who can be found in a flash. Stay alert, otherwise you might miss it. We tend to go on to the next idea so quickly, these critical insights are lost. 4. Look for instinctive empathy. Sometimes you can feel individuals' physical symptoms and feelings in your body, which is an extreme form of empathy. So, when reading people, notification. Does my back hurt when it didn't before? Am I depressed or upset after an uneventful meeting? To determine if this is empathy, get feedback. The third technique. Sense emotional energy. Emotions are a stunning expression of our energy, the vibe we emit. We register these with instinct. There are those that feel good to be around. They improve your state of mind and vitality. Others are draining. You naturally want to escape. This subtle energy can be felt inches or feet from the body, though it is unnoticeable. In Chinese medication, it's called qi, a vigor that's important to health. Strategies to check out emotional energy. 1. Sense people's presence. This is the general energy we produce, not always congruent with words or behavior. It's the emotional environment surrounding us, like a rain cloud or the sun. 2. Watch people's eyes. Our eyes send powerful energy. Just as the brain has an electromagnetic signal extending beyond the body, research studies show that the eyes project this as well. Take time to observe individuals' eyes. Also, you should identify, is there somebody in the home in their eyes, suggesting a capability for intimacy? Or do they appear to be guarded or hiding? 3. Notice the feel of a handshake, hug, and touch. We share psychological energy through physical contact, similar to an electrical present. Ask yourself, does a handshake or embrace feel warm, comfortable, confident? Or is it off-putting, so you want to withdraw? Are individuals' hands clammy, indicating anxiety? Or limp, suggesting being noncommittal and timid? 4. Listen for intonation and laugh. The tone and volume of our voice can tell much about our feelings. Sound frequencies create vibrations. When reading people, notice how their tone of voice affects you. Ask yourself, does their tone feel soothing? Or is it abrasive, snippy, or whiny. Chapter 2. How we read people's minds through their eyes. Which would you rather hang in your living room? A picture of an empty chair or a picture of someone being in that chair? Our look is naturally drawn to other individuals, and even a portrait of an unidentified person would not be out of place over the mantel or behind the couch, yet a picture of an empty chair would be strange. We'd probably even invent some reason why there's no individual in the picture. Perhaps that is the chair the artist's mom always sat in, and he painted it empty to convey his deep feeling of loss at her passing away. At any rate, there is still an individual indicated, and we'd be hard-pushed to accept the painting as just the portrait of a chair. Why would you paint such a thing? We spend a lot of time looking at other people, particularly at their faces. We're also told to look others in the eye when we speak with them, and we could feel awkward when an individual we are talking to keeps looking away. Most research on eye gaze has measured individuals' eye movements as they connect with still pictures or moving videos of other individuals on a computer screen. In these jobs, individuals spend more of their time looking at people than they do inanimate objects such as chairs. Still, University of Waterloo psychologist Evan Risco and his coworkers believe that there's far more to the story of where we cast our look when we are out in the real world with other individuals. Society bombards us with conflicting guidelines. We're told to look other people in the eye, yet we are also told not to look. And whether we gaze or not might depend upon what we think we can get away with. In one experiment, participants were seated across from a stranger in a waiting room while experimenters secretly tracked their eye look. These people rarely looked at the stranger. Truth be told, they actually spent more time looking at an empty chair that had also been put in the room. Another group of participants watched a live video feed of a person sitting in a waiting room. This time, the results were reversed. Now the people spent most of their time gazing at the other person, and very little time taking a look at the empty chair. According to Risco and his associates, these results are because of what he calls civil negligence. Eye look is a signal of what we're taking note of, and thus what we're interested in. It is socially uncomfortable to inhabit a space with another individual and not engage in conversation. Yet striking up a discussion with a total stranger is challenging for many people, and we could deem it not worth the effort if it is not likely we'll ever see that individual again. So rather, we act like we haven't observed each other. Obviously, when we think the other individual does not know we're looking, we give our voyeuristic bent free rein. Even when we participate in face-to-face encounters, whether we gaze or look away depends on several aspects. When researchers asked participants to connect with another person through what they believed to be a two-way video feed, they tended to make more eye contact when that individual was thought to be socially inferior to them, and they looked away more when connecting with a perceived social exceptional. Having said that, when they believed that the other person could not see them, the results reversed again. That is, they looked more at the social remarkable and less at the social inferior. Social superiors naturally amass our interest, but we may feel ashamed to look an essential person in the eye. Thus, we gaze intently as the president addresses the country on TV. However, in an in-person meeting, we'd probably cast our gaze downward. Behavior like this is likely due to more than just social standards, since our primate cousins also use eye look to signal social status. Simply because it's so simple for others to presume what we're thinking from our eye gaze, we also participate in civil negligence if exposing our thoughts would cause us embarrassment. In a third study, participants were fitted with eye-tracking gadgets and asked to wait alone in a space until it was time for the experiment to start. An intriguing poster of a design in a swimwear hung on one wall. Individuals who had been told that the gadgets were already taping looked away from the poster. Individuals led to really believe that the gadgets were not yet recording, though. Well, you can guess where they looked much of the time. We tend to look straight at an item we're addressing, since doing so casts its image into the center of our visual field, where we see things most clearly. Psychologists call this overt attention, because when we look at a thing, others around us know what we're taking note of. Yet we also have the ability to pay more attention to items outside the center of our visual field. Psychologists call this covert attention, simply because it appears that we're looking at one thing while truly taking notice of something else. There's some pretty advanced mind reading going on when we participate in covert attention. If I see you looking at that swimsuit model, I know what you're thinking. And if I look at her, I know that you will know what I'm thinking. Sure, I want to gawk at her, but I do not want you to think that I'm interested in that sort of thing. So I turn my look from her, only not too far, so she's still within my range of hidden attention. Chapter 3. Deception. Deceptiveness describes the act, big or small, cruel or kind, of motivating people to really believe info that is not true. Lying is a typical form of deception, stating something known to be false with the intent to trick. While most people are usually sincere, even those who subscribe to honesty engage in deceptiveness in some cases. Studies show that the typical person lies some number of times a day. Some of those lies are huge. I have never cheated on you. But more regularly, they're little white lies. That dress looks fine. Released to keep from uncomfortable situations or save somebody's feelings. Trust is the bedrock of social life at all levels, from romance and parenting to national government. Deceptiveness always weakens it. Because truth is so essential to the human business, which counts on a shared view of reality, the default presumption most people have is that others are honest in their interactions and negotiations. Most cultures have effective social sanctions against lying. The numerous forms of deception. There are sins of commission and sins of omission. Omitting information and concealing the truth are considered lies when they're finished with an intent to trick. Aside from statements that are incorrect, deceptiveness incorporates declarations that misrepresent or distort facts, and also the withholding of information. People can lie through straight-out declarations or by tactical silence. What types of lies do people tell? People could intentionally create false information or produce a story. However, most often, large development isn't the soul of lying. Rather, people trick by omitting info, denying the truth, or overemphasizing information. Or they might agree with others when in fact they do not, in order to maintain a relationship. But lies that are in one's own self-interest help phonies get what they want, make them look better, or spare them blame or humiliation. How do I lie to myself? Deceptiveness isn't always an outward-facing act. There are also the lies people tell themselves, for reasons ranging from maintenance of self-esteem to serious misconceptions beyond their control. While lying to oneself is generally perceived as damaging, some specialists say that certain sorts of self-deception, like believing one can accomplish a tough goal even if proof exists to the contrary, can have a positive influence on overall well-being. What is gaslighting? Gaslighting is a pernicious form of manipulation in which someone is deliberately told incorrect info with an intent to damage, specifically to weaken their sense of reality. Lies are used as weapons in an effort by one person to exert control over another. The strategy is commonly released by abusers, narcissists, cult leaders, and dictators. How are delusions different from lies? Deceptions are an extreme, pathological form of self-deception. They are false beliefs that contradict reality but which a person is convinced hold true, and might go to great lengths to convince others that they hold true. Deceptions are typically a symptom of impaired reality perception, common to mental conditions like mania and psychosis. How to find deception? Scientists have long looked for ways to definitively identify when someone is lying. They know that some people are better at lying than others. Their visual and verbal hints are in sync with what they're saying. But research studies consistently show that most people are terrible at discovering deceptiveness, performing no better than chance. There's evidence that many people have unreliable beliefs about signals of lying. For instance, that fidgeting is always a giveaway. How do I know when I am being lied to? Many professionals propose that phonies expose themselves in tells, significant and minor changes in nonverbal communication or facial expressions. However, observable signs of lying can be undependable. Researchers do find that some people lie more than others. Research studies show that children under 2 never lie, and that lying peaks in teenage years, when social relationships take on heightened significance. How do I know when I am lying to myself? Many people aren't knowledgeable about the ways they deceive themselves, but psychologists have identified many signals of self-deception. Outsize emotional reactions to present circumstances, conduct that runs out of step with who you claim or intend to be, can be indications that we believe things about ourselves that are false, or struggle to really believe things that are true. Is lack of eye contact always revealing? There is a long-standing belief that the eyes are a window to the truth, that liars are shifty, and inadvertently indicate their deception by avoiding their look or completely keeping away from looking a conversation partner in the eye. However, science gives the lie to that belief. Actually, researchers have found out that people make more eye contact when lying than when telling the truth. What are body language signals of lying? Covering a neck with a hand, raising the inside edge of a foot, compressing the lips, all are signs of stress that has been connected to lying. There is a widespread belief that the body and face are always truthful and provide trusted clues to lying, often called tells, if you know what to search for. But experts now believe that there is no single behavior indicative of deception, although such so-called nonverbals should be seen as notifications to possibly concealed or suspicious information that require further probing. Can speech give clues to deception? Researchers find that language and speech can offer possible but not definitive clues to deceptiveness. In analyses of text messages, liars tend to rattle on more, present few proven facts, and appear less certain of the facts. In speech, overuse of little utterances like ah, you know, right, I mean, can be clues to the cognitive load associated with lying. Are lie detector tests trustworthy? One of the best-known techniques, the polygraph test, is based upon the idea that lying modifies regular psychophysiological patterns that can be spotted by sensitive equipment. While well known in crime dramas and movies, the test has long been controversial, without evidence that there are definitive fluctuations in physiology. Evidence suggests that those with certain psychiatric conditions, like antisocial personality disorder, can't be accurately gauged by polygraph or other common lie detection approaches. Why people engage in deceptiveness. According to one professional, lies are a lot like wishes. Often, what's said are things people desire to be true. A big body of research determines 3 significant reasons that people lie: to get something they want, so-called important reasons, to safeguard or promote themselves, and to hurt others. Avoiding punishment may be the main motivation for both children and adults. While everybody lies a little, it seems that only a little portion of people do the majority of the lying. There has been proof that prolific liars share the personality type of Machiavellianism. They are manipulative and exploitative of others. The characteristic is closely related to psychopathy. Is honesty always the best policy? Inclinations matter when it comes to behavior. It is often a choosing factor in the law, and there are times when lies can help others or shield them from harm. At times, lies are told to prevent tough conversations, like those involving critical feedback, and they may appear protective. However, they can ultimately downside the recipient by depriving him or her of helpful information that can promote positive change. Is deceptiveness always damaging? Professionals differ on this topic. Some really believe that even white lies, told with the aim of protecting others or smoothing social relationships, are damaging because they deny people the experience of reality that could be used to enhance their lives. Lies are harming to relationships because they block intimacy. Lies are considered damaging because they ruin trust, the bedrock of society, the belief that others are reputable and mean no harm. Is deceptiveness always wrong? Lies that purposely inflict harm are commonly considered unethical, but at times lying is done for good purposes. People might lie to secure others, so-called altruistic lies, such as when a health professional tells a family that their father died a tranquil death, when in fact he did not. Some lies are told to help people accomplish their goals, such as when a spouse tells a dieting partner that there are no sweets in the home. Many ethicists really believe that lies that are committed to benefit others should be viewed as warranted, and that a specific amount of deceptiveness may be necessary for preserving a healthy, functioning society. How are compulsive liars different? Pathological or compulsive liars tell lies about themselves and others for no noticeable purpose, and they lie even when their claims are obviously incorrect. In some cases, their behavior is an indicator of a personality disorder, such as psychopathy. Scientists really believe that such people might lie as a way of preserving control or to avoid disappointing others. Or their lies could be a type of wishful thinking. Has fake news always been an issue? Although the term fake news is reasonably recent, the dissemination of intentionally false information or disinformation to manipulate public attitudes is not new. Nazi propaganda spread anti-Semitic lies to further Hitler's goals of eradicating the Jews. The web makes it possible for the creation and spread of fake news, including doctored videos at high speed, and puts the burden of confirmation of info on the reader. Professionals advise people to generally work with skepticism, specifically at info that is surprising, and to always check the credibility of news sources. Chapter 4. Why virtual communication can leave you run down. More than ever, we're reaching out online and interacting practically. Remote communication is necessary to combating loneliness and emotions of seclusion. It's also the best means we have for linking and interacting during the COVID-19 pandemic. Though communicating that way can have drawbacks. If you are seeming like all those online calls and video conferences appear to be leaving you drained by the end of the day, it is not just you. Virtual tiredness is real. Below are 5 reasons you might be feeling worn out and tired by virtual communication. Social nonverbal communication. With Zoom or FaceTime, for example, you cannot depend on body language for communication in the same way you may when talking with somebody face to face. In some cases, there are sound delays, and it can get stressful in communicating or repeating yourself continuously. It can sometimes also be tough to pick up on inflections in tribes' voices, which can make it challenging to comprehend the fullness of what others are attempting to communicate. It also makes picking up on nuanced forms of communication, like sarcasm, harder to identify. Social boundaries. For individuals with social anxiety, Zoom or FaceTime make it harder to draw limits. Most people get to see into your environmental context, where you live or are staying. This is not just about physical surroundings. It's also more difficult to control interactions, especially if you happen to be remaining at home with others. For instance, an individual who works at a workplace likely has more power over their surroundings. Having said that, when working from home or socializing from home virtually, there is a higher chance that others, like a spouse or child, could drop in and disrupt accidentally or perhaps purposely. Social hints. Another reason all those online calls and discussions might be leaving you feeling tired and slow is because social hints end up being less clear. It can be hard to know when mingling should end and the work or primary purpose of the call should move. Certain social hints that are quickly read in reality, like dullness or frustration, can be harder to read practically. Simply because of this, it prevails for people to feel pressure to fill silences and reverse. Social transitions. Further intensifying the awkwardness of communicating remotely may be that you and the individual you are talking with are having a hard time to know when to shift from little talk into something more considerable. When it comes to linking virtually, a lot of people approach essentially being social with the assumption that the purpose of the call is to just talk and catch up. This can leave you feeling like you are having discussions online that do not appear to be going anywhere. In many cases, people are reaching out more regularly online for virtual interactions as a way of attending to feeling lonesome, not always because they really need to talk about a particular topic or problem. Social anxiety. Feeling worn out and drained by virtual interactions may also be in part to how you are hardwired. The benefits of digital hangouts are the flexibility and accessibility to connect with one another. Digital hangouts have less technical barriers to interacting socially. In other words, finding a place to meet, the cost of transportation. Nonetheless, it would be presumptuous to say that digital hangouts are correlated with a finite outcome of well-being. Anxiety and stress manifest in people in different ways, and while there are really common symptoms, the subjective experience can't be nicely confined. If digital hangouts are causing crippling social anxiety, maybe an alternative form of communication could serve better. If a person's anxiety is at a working level and the advantages of interacting socially exceed or cultivates positive conduct, then maybe a gentle push outside of the comfort zone can be handy. If this describes you or somebody you know, another technique is to shut off the video function if possible. Changing video settings is another useful technique to reducing online social anxiety, like decreasing lighting or changing filters to buffer image. There is no perfect formula for how you should connect with people or how typically you should connect. Everyone feels connection in a different way. For some people, texting is more than enough for them to feel socially engaged, while others may really need an audible and visual connection to be satisfied in their social life. Simply because people have transferred to digital hangouts does not mean your social limits have to change. In general, we really need to be proactive and creative in fostering virtual social connections throughout this time of seclusion. But we also really need to make sure that how we are interacting does not make things even worse. This is why understanding the social drivers that may be triggering you to struggle is essential now more than ever. Chapter 5: Nonverbal Communication and Strategic Versatility. Strategic flexibility means expanding your nonverbal communication repertoire to use the best skill readily available for a particular situation. Without using the strengths of both genders, and that includes consciousness of your own nonverbal communication skills and deficits, equal contribution in the home or in the work environment is unrealistic. I have realized that strategic flexibility is the primary characteristic of effective people, a crucial part of exceptional relationships at work and in the home. Most people who possess this capability are happier and more fulfilled. Standard wisdom tells us that our biggest strengths can also be our biggest weaknesses. This is particularly true when we fall back on knee-jerk reactions. This is a man's job, we think, or that is women's work. When Abraham Maslow mentioned that everything appears like a nail to a person whose only tool is a hammer, he may well have been talking about one-sided masculinity or overplayed femininity. The truth is, there's no single way to behave in the world. 3 models represent the types of intergender communication that each sex can employ. Increased sex identification. The man or woman displays and intensely protects his or her sex-typed nonverbal patterns. Gender reversal. The person moves powerfully in the direction of emulating the other gender's communication ideals. Inclusiveness. The strengths of both genders' traditional styles are appreciated, and large variations are enabled when fitting communication behavior to scenarios. I, for one, argue for the merits of inclusiveness. Learning how to comprehend women's communication styles does not make a man feminine, just as learning to understand a guy's style doesn't render a woman manly. Consisting of some reliable communication techniques of the opposite sex is no different than contributing to a person's technical vocabulary or appreciating another nation's customs. A woman may develop assertive skills and still be identified by her sensitivity. A man might develop interpersonal abilities and still be defined by his capability to exercise power. In Gendered Lives, Julia Wood shares a diary entry from Miguel that shows the concept of combining and valuing the full variety of human qualities. I like to be strong and stand up for myself and what I think, but I wouldn't want to be only that. I am also sensitive to other people and how they feel. There are times to be hard and times to be soft. By urging gender flexing, I'm not indicating that guys should become women and women become men. Paradise forbid. But they can learn from each other without abandoning effective qualities they already possess. Both men and women bring different nonverbal ability to the table. The more they can each expand their respective repertoires, the more effective they will be in relationships both at work and home. They have more choices and choices. Chapter 6: Tips to create powerful nonverbal communication. According to some studies, communication between people is more than 50% nonverbal. That being the case, we all should take a moment to ensure we aren't unintentionally sending out the wrong messages. 1. The eyes are the window to the soul. They display what your heart is feeling. Look deeply into your partner's eyes when you are having a discussion, whether the topic is easy or serious. 2. Pay close attention to your body position and posture. Leaning forward and facing your loved one automatically communicates receptiveness and interest. Turning away or staring off into space says you're not really there. 3. A mild capture of the hand or a touch of the arm while listening to your mate says that you're hearing him or her and that you understand. 4. Your face speaks volumes. A frown, a disapproving appearance, or rolling your eyes will communicate judgment. Do not let your face speak before you are prepared with the proper words. Notice how just a nod of your head can send a message of encouragement or, if done in a negative way, displeasure. 5. Stay away from diversions. If you aren't fully concentrated on whomever you are attempting to get in touch with, he or she will notice that you aren't entirely engaged in the discussion. This sends the message that you don't care. 6. Shaking hands can send out an effective message. For instance, the two-handed shake expresses deep sincerity. A high five programs mutual approval, and a sincere grip motivates trust. Keep from a limp or cupped handshake. It will make the other person question the connection. 7. Understand personal space. Physical distance is necessary. There are those that need as much as 3 feet between themselves and the individual they're speaking to. In intimate relationships, this distance could make somebody feel unloved. If you do not know what is comfortable for the other person, just ask. 8. Gestures can mean different things to different people. In some cultures, waving your hand can say, "Good to see you," and in others, the same movement can express something derogatory. Learn to be sensitive to how people whom you care about translate your movements. 9. Smells, clothes, and color choices all send out messages. Your perfume could be alluring, overwhelming, or offensive. It could also make the ones with more sensitive noses sneeze. Our clothes say we are cool, we're conservative, or we're unemployed. Pay attention to how others react to your personal style and make certain you're not sending unintentional messages. 10. If you actually want to get a great reading on how you look to others, video yourself talking. If you do not like something you see, you have the power to change it. Being mindful of your capability to communicate nonverbally can stop molehills from becoming mountains and can help you navigate the most difficult conversations. Chapter 8. How do I know when I am lying to myself? Human beings are masters of self-deception. We trick ourselves into believing things that are incorrect, and we refuse to really believe things that are true. Truth be told, we lie to ourselves about practically every little thing. From why we like wearing designer clothing instead of non-name brand style, to how our childhood affected our choice of romantic partners. And the majority of the time, we're completely unaware of the rampant lying going on in our own minds. The problem of self-deception. Given the unconscious nature of self-deception, being sincere presents us with a pretty serious issue. How do we know when we're lying to ourselves? As articulated in a question just recently positioned to Dr. Neil Burton in his blog, "Can You Tell When You're Tricking Yourself?" lots of people are left wondering how to discover self-deception. How can you tell when you are lying to yourself? Plainly, you cannot directly ask yourself whether you are lying because that would need you to tell the truth. So how do you know when you are deceiving yourself? In addition to the many questions positioned by Dr. Burton to help you on your journey to self-honesty, I offer some particular ideas taken from my new book, Lies We Tell Ourselves: The Psychology of Self-Deception. I use self-deception in the framework of romantic relationships as an example because it is widespread and has exceptionally destructive consequences. Spotting your self-deception. The most essential way to identify whether you are lying or not is to observe yourself, without judgment or evaluation. Just see and start asking questions that can expose your internal inspirations. As you do this, focus on 3 areas. 1. Notice your feeling. Typically, if we're mentally reactive to something or somebody, it is simply because we are being reminded of something painful, raw, or unsolved in our lives. In these areas, we're going to struggle to admit the truth. For example, if you deal with trust problems in your romantic relationships, you might feel anxious, angry, or scared when falling in love with a new mate. As this occurs, you might find yourself reactive to your mate in ways in which aren't actually necessitated or based upon who that individual is. As a matter of fact, your reaction is basically based upon who you are and unsolved concerns from your past that you're bringing into your new relationship. Given this reality, when you have a strong psychological reaction to something or a person, time out. Ask yourself, what is this emotion? What is my emotion in response to? Is my emotion really related to the present situation, or is the present situation activating something in me that's unsolved luggage from my past? 2. Notice your thoughts. All of us want to believe that our thoughts are accurate reflections of reality. Truth be told, the majority of us actually believe that we're right about everything. We think our thoughts hold true. Regrettably, our thoughts are usually incredibly inaccurate, typically in particular ways. Typically, our inaccurate thinking shows uncomfortable truths that we don't want to admit. When participating in a new romantic relationship, for example, people usually think things that are extremely irrational. These ideas can be really negative, like, I am certain my new partner is cheating on me because my ex cheated, and I am scared to fall in love because I'm going to get hurt. Or they can be extremely positive, like, this is the most incredible individual in the world. Given this reality, when you notice your thinking is severe or irrational, time out. Ask yourself, what words am I using to describe my partner? Are my thoughts accurate? Am I using my past to validate my existing thinking? How are my thoughts prejudiced? 3. Notice your behavior. We frantically want our conduct to be separate from our identity. We don't want to actually believe that the way we act reflects who we are. For example, you don't want to admit that you're envious even though you check your partner's phone messages. You do not want to have intimacy problems although you sabotage your relationships by breaking up with people when they get too close. Yet the truth is that our behavior is a reflection of who we are in some way. When your behavior isn't consistent with who you want to be or declare to be, pause. Ask yourself, why am I acting that way? What is inspiring my conduct? What do I not want to admit to myself about my conduct, and why? Choosing sincerity. We cannot be sincere with others till we initially are truthful with ourselves. When we deceive ourselves, we often burden and damage our romantic relationships. Being sincere needs intentional effort on a daily basis, and also tolerating some agonizing realizations. Yet by observing our feelings, ideas, and habits, we can find out about who we really are and give ourselves the opportunity to change. Chapter 9. How Women and Men Interpret Unmentioned Messages. Nonverbal communication is every little thing except the written and spoken word. Most people are always communicating. Even silence sends out a message to those around you. Morabian, a professor at University of California, Los Angeles, realized that when there were clashing verbal and nonverbal messages being sent, 55% of the message's meaning came from facial expressions and body movement. 38% originated from singing hints such as pitch, stops briefly, and tone, and only 7% of the message's meaning originated from the spoken word. This means over 90% of the meaning originates from nonverbal behaviors. Nonverbal communication includes body language, kinesics, singing hints, paralinguistics, the usage of space and distance, proxemics, touch, haptics, color, clothes, and artifacts. Nonverbal communication includes, but is not limited to, the following: touch, eye contact, gaze or glance, volume, pitch, volume of voice, use of personal space, gestures, facial expression, pauses, silence, articulation, speaking rate, dress and general appearance, posture, smell, non-fluencies or singing sounds, and, vocal fillers, whatever, yeah. Women and men tend to use nonverbal habits in a different way. For instance, women have a tendency to be more meaningful when interacting. They use more facial expressions and gestures than guys. Women smile more frequently than guys. Women smile so frequently that it can be hard to know when the smile has a meaning of joy, the circumstance really deserves a smile, or the smile means ashamed, angry, miserable, forgetful, etc. Men tend to smile only when they are really happy or have heard something amusing. Contrary to women, guys' smiles are generally congruent with their feeling of happiness. Just because guys don't smile as much as women and aren't as expressive in their gestures and facial expressions, some view guys as emotionless or identify them as cold and disinterested. Women who don't smile and look straight at the speaker might be deemed upset, mad, unsupportive, or snobbish. Men who smile a lot, more than when they are very happy, and gaze at the speaker may be perceived as suspicious or a troublemaker. As the facilitator, relate the participants' remarks and examples to earlier chapters on socialization and how they have learned gender-appropriate nonverbal habits. Women are more experienced than men at figuring out nonverbal messages. The generalization that women are more intuitive than men may connect to women hearing the verbal and seeing the nonverbal messages. Women translate both message channels, verbal and nonverbal, when assigning meaning to the message as a whole. Men tend to concentrate on the words or content only of the messages they hear. Some of the thinking for this is that the ones with lower status usually need to be proficient at reading messages from each channel to ensure they get the full message. When an individual has low status, she or he wants to get as much info as possible from the high-status individual in order to react to them appropriately. In United States culture, people of high status, normally guys or white people, don't need to pay close attention to all message channels from a subordinate or lower status individual. It suffices for them to hear the words as the sole message. The group that has the power doesn't really need to be competent at reading or decoding the nonverbal messages of the ones with less power. Nevertheless, for the ones with less power, nonverbal reading abilities increases their survival and ability to succeed. Women are more clued in than guys to individuals' nonverbal gestures and emotions, and women use those messages to analyze the message as a whole. This has been How to Analyze People, How to See Through Deception and Make Better Eye Contact. Written by Aries Helen. Narrated by Dean Collins.